Hi friends, welcome to this latest episode of the Nationalist View. And today we have with us a very special guest, Nina Slama ji. Nina ji, thank you so much for taking time out from your busy schedule. And Nina ji is an Indo-Israel specialist. She is also a specialist in Israel's foreign policy. She is associated with the Reichman University as a faculty, and she writes extensively. She is also associated with an India-based think tank called Usana's Foundation as a distinguished fellow. And Nina ji has been on our show in the past, and she has earlier shared her deep insights about what is happening in West Asia. And a couple of days ago, I was having a conversation with Professor Ephraim Inbar, where I told him, while people in the West call this region Middle East, we call it the West Asia. So sometimes, so it is for our viewers that, Middle East and West Asia, they are kind of basically synonymous terms. So during the conversation, you might be hearing both the terms. Don't get confused about that. Ninaji, my first question is, Israel has attacked Qatar, or rather, I should say, Israel had attacked the Hamas leadership in Qatar. And Israel is also taking complete control of Gaza. So, why Israel is taking control of Gaza and why this attack? Are they interlinked? And how things are panning out? Is this war moving up on the escalation ladder as Israel seems to have opened another front with an attack on Qatar? And how feasible it is for Israel to take control of Gaza and maintain that control for some time.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me, Arun. It's always a pleasure to be here. So regarding the recent attack of Israel in Qatar, we see that for the past few months and since the beginning of the war, Israel tried to come to the table of negotiations with Hamas and bring to the end of the war. This is our objective. We don't want to prolong the war anymore. And it's been almost 2 years of constant combats, not only in Gaza, but also in other fronts. And to be precise, 7 different fronts. We're talking about Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Qatar right now, Gaza, and Yemen. All these countries are harboring non-state actors, terrorist organizations that are posing an imminent threat to the national security of Israel. And since a Hamas terrorist organization not only launched the October 7 attack, but also brutally and horrifically take more than 250 hostages to Gaza, when we know that there are still 48 hostages that are remaining there and that are still there under horrific conditions. And we saw just recently some of the visuals of our hostages that are starved there, not only starved, but also in a very bad condition, and there is a great fear for their lives. So because Hamas, time and again, reject any offer that was posed on the table, whether it was from Israel, the Israeli side, the Qatari side, the American side, Israel should act differently, because we saw that diplomacy does not work. And we know very well from past, deal hostages and from past policies that Israel was conducted, that the only way to pressure Hamas is through military action, not only in Gaza, but in other fronts, one of them being Qatar. Israel sent a message that there will be no place where Hamas terrorists, whether they are high officials of Hamas or high-ranking officials of Hamas or terrorists, whether it is in Gaza, in Qatar, or in other places, that will be immune to Israel's strikes. And why? Because it is the only way to go forward and to bring to the total release of all hostages, dead and alive, and to make Hamas lay down their weapons. As we are talking, there is a ground operation taking place in Gaza, with many Israeli soldiers and other Israeli forces that are trying to dismantle the very complex compounds in which Hamas are still combating Israeli forces and are still posing an imminent threat towards Israel. It was not enough for them to launch the October 7th attack, but they are declaring once and again that they will launch another attack similar to October 7th. Now, we see just recently that there are other fronts that are becoming more and more challenging from Israel. We're talking about the West Bank. We're talking about Jordan. Just recently, there was a terrorist attack while humanitarian aid was crossing the border from Jordan to Israel, that the terrorists just came up from one of the trucks and killed two Israeli soldiers, questioning the whole issue of humanitarian aid in Gaza. We have to remember and understand that Israel, since the beginning of the war, is trying to have the Gazan population that is not involved in Hamas activities. And we know that this same population is suffering from Hamas rule in Gaza. So when people are chanting Free Palestine, they should know or understand that they should free Palestine from Hamas terrorist organization as well. It is not only an Israeli issue, but also a real and important and significant challenge and threat to the Gazan population itself. And we saw some visuals about Gazan people, whether they were publicly or speaking out and condemning Hamas for turning Gaza into ruins. They understand that the only responsible for that is not the Israeli strikes, but Hamas extremist ideology that would like to bring to the total annihilation of Israel.
Nina ji, we see in this part of the world, as you rightly mentioned, that there are a lot of new fronts also which are opening up for Israel. So we see Pakistan becoming very active in United Nations, especially in terms of taking on Israel and targeting Israel, though Israeli envoys, so they gave a befitting reply also. But Pakistan has upped the ante over the last few weeks. We have seen one. Second is that we also saw that Turkey has also the Israel and Turkey has diplomatic relationship, and Turkey being part of NATO also. So, but Turkey has also upped the ante, and it has taken a very strong anti-Israel voice. And now in Syria, there is a pro-Turkey or a Turkey-backed, government which is there, which is basically an extension of the Al Qaeda. How do you see this emergence of the Pakistan, Turkey, China nexus in terms of implications for Israel's security?
Yes. So this nexus is not only a challenge for Israel, but also for India. And we saw it very clearly during the Sindhu operation. We saw that Pakistan used weapons coming directly from China and Turkey. And luckily, and very strategically, India was able to just dismantle their capabilities and to just intercept all different projectiles that were launched not only to military infrastructures, but also to civilians ones. Something that India and Israel are trying very much not to harm, like not to harm civilian infrastructures and compounds. But unfortunately, Pakistan, Iran proxies, and Iran itself are targeting civilians. And this is why it is very difficult for democratic countries that are conducting wars under international law and trying just to make sure not to harm uninvolved people to just operate in densely populated areas that state and non-state actors are using in order to challenge very much these democratic countries, which eventually lead what we saw like when it comes to India and Israel, condemning Western countries and populations and other allies of India and Israel, condemning India and Israel when they wanted to just restore their national security. Now, today, because of the complexity of regional and international arenas, we see different kinds of coalitions that are building not only in West Asia, but in other parts of the world. And we see that the nexus between China, Turkey, and Pakistan is just another coalition of countries that would like to not only undermine, but to change the international order. They are called revisionist countries that would like to undermine Western dominance in the world, but not only the Western dominance, but also rising powers that are also democratic countries that would like to break to a change, that would like to restore stability and peace and look for ways to cooperate not only in military issues, but also in what we call personal security issues that are directly involving or affecting regular residents as you and I. We're talking about healthcare, economy, trade, renewable energies, food security, and so on. So why these coalitions are coming together and comprised of these revisionist countries, there are other alliances and coalitions that are built as well. And this is exactly what happened following the signing of the Abraham Accords. Let's just remind that before October 7, Israel was not perceived as a problem anymore, but as part of a solution that can bring peace and stability to the region. And this is why pragmatic countries such as the UAE, Bahrain, and even Saudi Arabia that wanted before October 7 to normalize relations with Israel to build this kind of coalition that will restore the stability of the region. But unfortunately, there were some elements and some countries that did not see these kind of developments in a positive way. And there are many commentators that say that besides the extremist ideology of Hamas to just annihilate Israel, there was also this aspiration of Iran to just weaken these kind of developments and these kinds of countries that were perceived to weaken very much the axis of terror, or what they call the axis of resistance in the region. So to be honest, the October 7th attack were horrific, and there were many casualties in Israel, and we are still combating a war. But let's remember that these attacks enabled Israel to weaken very much this axis of terror. If we're talking about Hezbollah, the government of Lebanon is now being able just to condemn Hezbollah and even conduct or promote some policies that will just give them the opportunity to get rid of Hezbollah that has been a real headache for the Lebanese government for many years now, for just to try and restore the stability of the country with all these complexities that will well known domestically that they are confronted to. We're talking about economic issues and also societal issues that have been very important and significant in this country. We saw that also Iran has been weakened very much. Following the Rising Lion operation that Israel was able, together with the US, to conduct, it was not only something that benefited Israel when it comes to the Iranian threat, but also other countries in West Asia. And also the Houthis in Yemen, that were a new actor that Israel had to confront during this war. And as we're speaking, there were bombings in the Hodeidah port and other places in Yemen that their main objective was to weaken the Houthis and the threat that they were posing not only to Israel, but to other countries when it comes to maritime routes that were blocked and disturbed very much the international trade. And we see that although the October 7th attack objective or main objective was to weaken Israel and the positive developments that were going on in West Asia, they actually weakened very much the axis of terror. So I believe that both India and Israel, with other partners in West Asia, will do everything in their power in order to weaken this nexus of Turkey, China, and Pakistan that are posing imminent threats not only to India and Israel, but to other countries as well.
You have talked about weakening of Iran. Of course, now there is a general consensus that the Shia crescent, which was emerging in West Asia, so it has weakened a lot. But now there seems to be a rise of the Sunni axis, what we call the axis of evil also. So especially with the rise of Turkey, because we know that in the Muslim world, so Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, and Iran, they have been competing with each other for leadership of the Muslim world. Now, weakening of Iran leads to a relatively strengthening of Turkey's. And Turkey under Erdogan, we have seen is nurturing Muslim Brotherhood also. So, how does Israel, and Turkey is also a member of NATO. Turkey is also an ally of US, and US is also US is actually the closest ally of Israel. So, as you rightly mentioned, that these are complex issues, but how does, as an analyst, how do you look at uh, in terms of how Israel is going to deal with Turkey, or how Israel is dealing with Turkey? How much of a threat perception Turkey holds as far as Israel's national security is concerned, both in the short run and in the long run?
So the rising of this Sunni axis is not new for Israel. The Muslim Brotherhood is an idea or an ideology that Hamas is following, Qatar is following, Turkey is following. And we know that for many years, Israel and other countries such as the Gulf states and Egypt were combating actors that are following this extremist ideology. Now, Turkey, as being a very challenging country, not only for Israel, but also for India, as we mentioned earlier. And as this new Sunni axis is forming, we know very well that Israel and India are looking for other partners that could just address this challenge. And I'm talking about Mediterranean states that are also very worried about the rise of Turkey and the challenges that it imposes on them, namely Cyprus and Greece. So we know very well that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi paid official visits to Cyprus and is strengthening the relations not only with Cyprus but also with Greece. And we also know that there is a new coalition or a new alliance that is formed between India, Israel, Cyprus, and Greece. When it comes to not only security issues, but other issues, we have to remember that the main or one of the main positive implications of the signing of the Abraham Accords was the IMEC initiative, the India, Middle East, European corridor that was very much disturbed following the October 7 attack. But even during war times, there are countries that are trying to see how they can develop this ambitious and important project that can benefit many countries, not only in South Asia, West Asia, and Europe, but in other parts of the world as well. And it seems that today countries are trying to promote this idea in a fragmented way. It means that it is not possible to build the routes and the corridor from India through Saudi Arabia, Gulf countries, Jordan, and so on, and Israel to Europe. So they're trying to just cut it into little pieces in order to see how they can eventually bring to the fulfillment of this ambitious project. And I believe that India is doing so with the Gulf countries and also with Israel, Cyprus, and Greece. So when we're talking about international relations, there are so many issues that are brought to the table, right? It's not only military issues, but also new ways to see how countries can come together, uh, address a certain challenge, and try to see how they can promote ambitious projects that can benefit not only them, but also other countries that would like to be part of restoring peace and stability in different parts of the world.
My last question, Nina ji, is I generally always bring in this question regularly on my podcasts, especially with experts who are closely tracking Islamic radicalization. We have seen another common thing between what happened during Operation Sindoor and what Israel has been facing consistently over the last couple of years, especially after this offensive against Hamas and the other players had started. That is a propaganda war. During Operation Sindoor, we saw that there was a propaganda war, and there has been a consistent propaganda war against India on Kashmir. And during Operation Sindoor, post Operation Sindoor, also there was a propaganda war by Pakistan, which was backed by Turkey and China also. Israel also has been facing a propaganda war. We often see images which are shown on television and on your mobile phones that there is a humanitarian crisis in Gaza and Israel is responsible for that. While Israel has been winning war on the ground, it has I would say it is on back foot when it comes to the propaganda war. So how India and Israel both they can come together to fight this propaganda war, because I think this is one of the least talked about issues, but this is one of the most effective. We see demonstrations happening all over the world. The pictures are flashing on the television channel basically, and it is as if the whole world is up against Israel, and Israel is the villain. So how do you see this propaganda war? What Israel is doing to tackle it? Or is it beyond tackling? You can't help it. You have to accept it because of the sheer number of Islamic radicalized groups, and they have pulled in. TRT has brought all of them actually basically together and created a vertical under which they carry out this propaganda war. TRT, which is the official agency of news agency of Turkey. So, how do you see this propaganda war thing?
So it is a very important and excellent question because this is like besides like the military like issues and national security issues that Israel and India have to face. I think that also the propaganda war and the psychological war that is taking place today in the world is also a strategic one because we see that both India and Israel can do tremendous or extraordinary things when it comes to military operations that can bring to the restoration of stability in their countries and the restoration of their national security. But then, when we're talking about the diplomatic front, there is a lot of things to do, and we see that military actions or successes can be diplomatic failures that afterwards are coming or projected as policies that countries are taking and promoting against India and Israel. I can tell you that Israel is very much challenged in different international forums, naming only the United Nations, where there was a recent United Nations General Assembly resolution calling for the establishment of a Palestinian state and condemning time and again in different forums and in different committees of the UN Israel. And it seems like many countries and people around the world have a short memory and do not remember the horrific attack that Israel was the victim of. And we're talking, of course, about the October 7 attacks. But since then, there are still state and non-state actors that are just promoting promoting like terrorist activities that are causing a lot of casualties in the Israeli side as well. it seems also that these countries do not differentiate between Hamas and the Gazan population. And they should condemn Hamas if they really care about the Gazan population. And I think that today, democratic countries that are surrounded by hostile countries and by hostile terrorist organizations should come together in order to think about innovative way to tackle the propaganda war. There is a lot of disinformation and misinformation just spread that is spreaded in social media platforms and also in now with the introduction of the artificial intelligence, it's very difficult today for people to differentiate between truth or true facts and false or just fake news, right? And today, it is very important not only on to bring the facts on national broadcasting, right, platforms, but also to make good use of people such as influencers and other social media platforms that will just convey the message in a very reliable and direct way to the younger population that is not only not always aware about the facts, the historical backgrounds of different conflicts, and not just taking a mere idea about a certain conflict by propaganda. And I can tell you that terrorist organizations put a lot of effort in this front because they understand that this is a significant mean that can undermine the power of countries that have significant military might. And I believe that when India, Israel, and other partners will come together and figure out how to tackle this challenge that has been very challenging for both countries for many years now, that we can just address this threat and see how, while thinking or strategizing military operations, to make sure that it goes in parallel with a very important policy and program that will allow both countries to just launch it in crisis times, and to see that how they can deal together in order to appease the voices or be a counter or to counter the misinformation that is going on in the internet. And this is also something important that to do not only in crisis or war times, but also during regular times, just to projecting positive images of India and Israel, showing the complexity of things, not only positive aspects, but also, things that are happening in these countries, because there is a lot of ignorance that is fueled by propaganda and fueled by fake news, disinformation and misinformation. And today it's very easy to just lead people because they do not have the knowledge, because they do not educate themselves enough, and because they are just picking one sentence from here and one sentence from there and just thinking that they have a general idea about an issue without really looking into for it.
Thank you, Nina ji, for bringing in such deep insights, and thank you so much. And to our viewers, this is the end of this conversation, but more conversations will go on. We are going to continue to track what is happening in West Asia, or what you call Middle East, and especially Israel's war against Islamic radicals. And Nina ji, thank you once again for being with us. We expect and look forward to host you soon again. And thank you so much. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Arun. Thank you.